Good morning, Westminster. I'm Patrick, and this is your Thursday devotional. There's a scene in Luke where Jesus is having a dinner party, or attending one, with the Pharisees. And he noticed that people were intently choosing the seats of honor. So this sparked Jesus to speak in a parable of a wedding banquet. And he said, to paraphrase, when you're invited to the wedding banquet, don't take the seat of honor, because if you do, the host might tap you on the shoulder and say, I'm sorry, this was reserved for someone of higher rank than you, and you will be forced to walk in disgrace to the seat of less honor. Instead, Jesus said, take the seat of lowest honor, and then the host may come to you and say, please come and sit in the good seat. Jesus concludes this parable by saying, all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. This reminds me of a scene that I haven't thought about in over a year's time. It was July 3rd, 2019, and my family and I were seated on the lawn of the United States Capitol to watch the dress rehearsal of the Capitol Fourth, the concert and music that is shown every year on PBS on July 4th. We've made a habit of going to that when we could in those days. And we were seated on the lawn and had been in our seat for some time when a family of four, a mom and a dad and two kids, took the grassy spot in front of us. But instead of laying on a blanket or on a chair that was low to the ground, they had these pretty substantial chairs that blocked the view of pretty much everyone behind them, including the view of my children and of me. And this rankled me. You may think I'm Mr. Nice Guy a lot of the time, but I was thinking very unnice thoughts. And I did confront the mother and father about how their sitting in that place in that way was blocking the view of the people behind them, and could you please move to the ground? They weren't necessarily rude in their response, but they weren't friendly either. And they kind of made a promise to do so later when the kids arrived or when more of their family arrived. But as the show got ready to get started, they continued to sit in their seats, so I confronted them again. And this time the temperature of the conversation raised a bit. I was being respectful as best I could. I wasn't trying to pick a fight. But I was also not backing down from my desire to assert my kids' experience of the show and for it not to be ruined by their sitting right in front of us. It seemed rude to me. Now here's where my memory gets a little bit hazy. I can't remember exactly what they did or what happened, but what I think happened was a kind of middle ground where maybe a few of them sat down, but not all, and maybe my kids and I moved a little bit to the left, and we all had a decent enough view of the show and didn't think much of it for the rest of the time. In fact, we danced a bit together as the show went on. That whole moment had to do with the seat of honor, really, right? The privilege of seeing how one person's vantage point can block another. And there's one part of the story that I haven't told you yet, but that now looking back is more significant than it was in the moment, though I was mindful of it at the time as well. That this family was African American, and by and large, they were the only African American family sitting within this section of grass on the U.S. Capitol lawn for this concert. I don't have grand observations or conclusions to make from that episode, but connecting it to this parable that Jesus told about the seat of honor and how being exalted really means humbling, and how being humbled leads to exaltation. I wonder about the Black Lives Matter movement and the white response to it, and whether the indignation and anger that it arouses in some when we say Black Lives Matter as though that is a contradiction to all lives matter. Whether that reaction is grounded in what I was feeling in the lawn when that family of 4 blocked my kid's view. I wonder if it represents a sense of my and our not wanting to lose our place of privilege, our good spot, our good view. And when I lay that aside to what Jesus said in this parable, I'm glad that what emerged in that moment was something in between my asserting my rights over theirs, or necessarily theirs overwhelming mine, but a yielding to one another so that all could enjoy the concert and in the end dance. But I do also happen to think that it perhaps was my job in the moment to yield first, especially to a family that probably has experienced a lot where they were not yielded to. All those who exalt themselves will be humbled, Jesus said, and all those who humble themselves will be exalted. Today's devotion is about remembering that, and my inviting you to consider the ways in which your actions and your thoughts center upon defending your good view in this life, or perhaps seeking the seat of honor when we are invited to step aside and find that actually we can enjoy the show, that we can be part of the feast together. Thanks for listening. Thanks for thinking. Thanks for being open to transformation that is at the heart of our life together as people of Jesus Christ who are moved by the Spirit and enfolded in the everlasting love of God. God's grace and peace be with you all. Amen.